Marriage is not as hard as people are making it out to be. What's really hard is doing all the communication stuff beforehand. You have to put in the work before the marriage, and then the marriage runs like really smoothly. So the number one thing you need to talk about before you get married is, do you even want to get married? It's really important to understand the boundaries surrounding your relationship with your partner, because if one of you wants to get married and the other one doesn't, if one of you, or even like the wedding, I mean, okay, what do you envision your wedding looking like? Or do you want to elope? Do you want to have this huge thing? Are we going to have an open relationship? Are we going to have a really exclusive relationship? Is this something we want to, be able to revisit every few years to talk about, whatever development, people's personal lives, but you need to understand the boundaries of your relationship and set the expectations right up front. I said this in my last video. I'm going to say it again in this video. I don't understand if you're dating not to marry. I don't get that. However, if that's what you're doing, you need to make sure that you're upfront with the person that you're seeing, because you need to make sure that both of your expectations are clear. One person cannot be dating for marriage and the other person dating for a good time. That doesn't end well for anyone. So be clear about the expectations of your relationship right up front. The very next thing that you need to talk about in your relationship before you get married is, how do you want to fight? And I'm going to do a whole nother video on this. I know I said that last video. It's just such an important subject, but you need to understand, how do you want to resolve conflict in your marriage? What is your conflict style? Not everyone fights the same way. And so you really want to make sure that you understand your partner so that your fights are productive. My favorite piece of marriage advice that is given to anyone is, it is you and your partner versus the problem, not you versus your partner. And I think that's so important that people understand that. And it starts with understanding your partner's conflict resolution style. Because let me tell you, they vary quite a bit. The next thing you need to understand and you need to talk about before you get married is, how are we handling our families? And I'm not talking like your kids. That's a whole nother, that's on the list. But how are we handling our extended families? Your parents, my parents. I'm very fortunate because my in-laws are actually pretty great. My husband is fortunate in a different sense. I don't have a relationship with my mom, so he doesn't really have to worry about it. And then my dad, I love him, but he is so passive. So there is never a conflict with him. He's just not someone who is going to cause a big fuss or stink about anything. By the way, my self-care for this Sunday is I'm doing my nails. I'm really bad at doing my nails. I actually made a TikTok a few weeks ago asking for advice, and some people said to rough up my nails, so I really went after them. And then other people said that I needed to put alcohol, rubbing alcohol on my nails to get the natural oils off, and that those two things would get the polish to stick and adhere to my nail really well. Because my problem is the edges just peel up so quickly, and I'm so not a patient person when it comes to nails. I just want something that's going to work and be done, and that's it. And that is probably my biggest downfall, because I just don't have the energy or the time, frankly. But anyway, I'm using nail polish remover as the alcohol because I don't actually have traditional rubbing alcohol, and I'm pretty sure this has alcohol in it, so I'm winging it. We don't know if it's going to succeed. And then this is the color I'm doing. I just did my first set of nails. Traditionally, I'm a black nail girly. I do love having black nails, but I just really wanted to branch out. Back to in-laws, though. Some in-laws are really amazing. Other in-laws, not so much. You can see plenty of examples of that on the internet, because some of these people say the craziest things I've ever heard. It is insane. But you need to understand, first of all, What is my partner going to tolerate? Is my spouse going to allow their family to treat me that way? Am I going to allow their family to treat me that way? If their family is treating me a certain way or disrespecting our boundaries or, whatever, is my spouse going to be the one talking to their family? Am I expected to talk to their family? I'm very fortunate. I can talk to my mother-in-law if I need to, and I have. But also a lot of the time, I just talk to my husband. I say, hey, can you please address this? Because there are just certain things where I'm like, I think it would come better from you. I don't know if I'm the messenger for this particular concern or conversation. So you need to understand, like, how are you guys dealing with each other's families? Again, it's all about, like, understanding what the expectation is right up front. Now, this next one. You have to know how you guys are going to live together. And I say you have to talk about this because a lot of people live together and then just get really resentful because they never, like, discuss their living situation. Also, there are a lot of people out here who are very traditional and don't actually believe in living together before marriage, which is why you have to have the conversation. One, you guys have your own things. Like, before you live together, you have your own pots and pans and furniture and, personal items. You have to know what all's, like, how's it divvying up? What are we keeping? What are we getting rid of? Where's it all gonna go? Are you really married to this recliner? Because I prefer to not have it because I think it's pretty ugly. But if you're married, like, if you love it, what's the compromise we're going to do? But also, division of labor. How are you guys going to divide up chores? Is it just going to be like, hey, I've got the inside, you've got the outside? Is it going to be like, oh, I'll take care of the laundry if you take care of, like, cleaning the bathrooms or something? You got to understand that. And then you also have to understand what is your level of cleanliness that you're comfortable with. People have varying degrees of what they consider clean. And you need to be able to talk to your partner about that and really understand and nail down, like, okay, this is not what I consider clean and I will not be okay with it. Because it's not fair to your partner if you're, like, the kind of person who does their laundry and, like, leaves it in the hamper and then just pulls clean clothes out of the hamper as you go throughout the week. And they're like I'm going to fold it and put it away kind of person. Like, you guys have to have a conversation about, again, what is the expectation for how we're going to run our household? Because now we're a team and it all, like, whatever I do impacts you and whatever you do impacts me. And so we need to understand, like, how is this going to function? The fact that people don't actually have conversations about that is wild to me. Absolutely crazy. The next thing that you need to talk about before you get married, and this one really truly blows my mind. There's a couple of these that really need to, like, go higher on the list. These are not, I'm going to say, none of this is in order of importance. These are just all very important. I can't believe people don't do this. You need to talk about finances. You need to understand what is your partner's financial situation. What kind of loans do they have? What kind of debt do they have? What kind of credit score do they have? Do they understand? Do they have financial literacy skills? Do they understand financial stuff? I'm not saying any of that is necessarily, like, a disqualifier. I mean, maybe it is for you. But what I am saying is you need to fully understand where your partner stands on those things, because when you get married, their financial situation is going to greatly impact yours, and vice versa. Oh my gosh, big shocker, common theme. When you get married, all of your stuff impacts each other. So you need to understand what that looks like. You also need to have a conversation about how you guys are going to handle financial decisions going forward. Are you doing a joint bank account where everything goes into one bank account and then you just pull your money? I personally am a big fan of that version of it. I don't like the other versions personally. It doesn't work for me, but do your own thing, whatever works for you. But like, you need to understand, okay, so do we have one account that's shared and then I have my own individual account and you have your own individual account, and we just put what our joint bills are into that joint account so that it's covered and then everything else is fund money? Like, all that is stuff you need to understand. Whose names are going on the bills, whose names are like, that's all stuff you need to talk about. Also, you need to be able to talk about like your big purchases. You cannot just go out and buy something that's very expensive without discussing it with your partner. That is crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. All of this is stuff you need to lay down right away. And again, set the expectation. Understand what you're signing up for. And on that note, kids. You have to talk about kids. You have to talk about, do you want kids? How many kids do you want? How do you want to raise them? These are all really important questions, and you do yourself a huge disservice if you're not having very open, real, honest conversations about this before you get married. And some people will say, well, oh, this isn't a conversation you have to have before you get married, because you might have several years of marriage before you're even considering kids. And that's great. I totally get that. But talk about, like, for me personally, my worst nightmare would have been not talking about this, getting married, and then waiting until I was like, God, I don't know, 34, or like any time after really like 33, I think is fair for me personally. Anytime after 33, finding out then that my husband for some reason did not want kids. Because for me, that probably would have been a deal breaker. I probably would have been, I love you so much, but also like, I really want kids. So, and that's the way it is for a lot of people. And women have a biological clock. So you got to have these kinds of conversations so that you don't find yourself starting over. Oh my gosh, I ruined this. You don't find yourself starting over at, in your like mid 30s as a woman, and then feeling completely screwed out of your like experience and your and the life that you envisioned having. Also, like, you have to talk about how you're going to raise your kids, because I mean, you could have just really, really, really different views on how you want your family life to look. And so, I mean, you gotta understand before you bring kids into it what you're signing up for and what you're signing them up for. And that kind of ties into the next thing, which is religious beliefs, personal beliefs, deeply personal beliefs. Do you expect your partner to change religions? Do you expect your kids to be raised in a certain religion? These are all very important questions. These are things you have to know. And finally, something you really need to talk about is just your goals in general in life. If your significant other, if your partner has a really intense goal of just like having a really high-powered career, that is amazing. Good for them. However, typically, when those kinds of things are what people are looking for, that means that there's a sacrifice in a different area of your life. You cannot have everything all at once. So, in a lot of instances, you are sacrificing time with your spouse, or maybe the time that it takes to start a family, or vice versa. Maybe you're sacrificing the career in order to start the family. There's just a lot of things. So you need to make sure that your goals are aligned and you know what they want and what you want, and have some sort of understanding as to how you're going to attack all that. Because it's so unfair to both you and your spouse to like suddenly spring on them what you actually want. and they just have no idea. It's just do yourself a favor. Just make sure that your goals are aligned, or that you guys at least have a game plan of like, okay, we're gonna do your goal first, and then we will do my goal, and that, like, have an agreement, have an understanding. Make sure that you guys, like, really have those kinds of conversations, because that's really important. If there's anything that you think that I forgot or that I left out, please drop it in the comments. I would love to know what kind of conversations you think is important to have before you get married, because I am absolutely astonished at how little people communicate with their significant others before they get married. Because, like, you're supposed to be married for the rest of your life. Like, that's what you say in your vows and stuff. But people just don't think that far ahead. It blows my mind. You got to set your expectations right up front. You got to know what your significant other wants. You got to know what you want. And, like, things change. Life is crazy. It takes all these crazy twists and turns. But, I mean, you can really cut down significantly on the surprise factor when you have these kinds of conversations. So let me know if you think I've missed anything really crucial. As always, like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification to know when I am posting. I am doing new episodes every Sunday. I'm on TikTok every day. I post multiple times a day on TikTok. I post on Instagram. You can find me there as well. But it's been so fun having you guys, and I'm really enjoying spending time with you and also doing my own personal self-care. These are my nails. This is what I did today. I actually really like this color. I'm very pleased. This is an ugly green. This is really ugly. I don't like this.